Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Tonight, I want to take a look at the fight that has been started with Obama and Kerry with Israel. And I want to put that in a larger context, not just looking at what's happening in Israel, but looking at the context of the way the Democrats operate and in the context of globalism versus nationalism, because this is developing into a fight that is going to be centered at the United Nations. I think it tells us something very important. When we look back in December 24th, the Christmas Eve, this is a story that not too many people saw at the time because, of course, it happened in the holidays. It's on Daily Mail, and they pointed out what the Democrats don't want you to see. This party lost more than 1,030 seats during the Obama reign, okay? That's in state legislatures, governors' mansions, and Congress during Barack Obama's presidency. 1,000 seats that were lost. And I can tell you, in North Carolina, Obama won North Carolina in 2008. But people were so put off by his policies that in 2010, they essentially elected a clean slate of Republicans in the midterm, except for congressional districts. And of course, they didn't have any change in congressional districts because that is really dictated by gerrymandering. Every party does that. When they get control of the state legislatures, they draw up the congressional districts, and that will really determine apart from anything else, who wins the next congressional election. So after they changed the redistricting in 2010, then they changed the Republican outlook for Congress in North Carolina. Republicans had major gains there. And as we pointed out before, Obama is going to work with Eric Holder to sue legislatures. He's already talked about that, how he's going to get involved state by state to try to win in court what they couldn't win at the ballot boxes. Barack Obama is going to be leading the Democrat Party. Hillary Clinton has been thoroughly discredited. Most in the Democrat Party have been discredited, but Obama is going to be taking the leadership. He's going to be remaining in Washington, totally unprecedented. Only Woodrow Wilson did that, and of course, he was a committed globalist as well. So this is something that they're preparing right now for the way the political party is going to be moving in the future. And we've seen how the Democrat Party in the 20th century did a pivot from using the Ku Klux Klan, just like Southern Poverty Law Center. They were allies of the Ku Klux Klan. And then all of a sudden they pivoted the other way and went in the other direction. Now, we have seen the Democrat Party for a long time throw men and Christians under the bus. That's nothing new. But now they're starting to turn on traditional constituents that have been a part of their party. And I think this is very significant, what's happening between Israel and Obama right now, because it shows that they are throwing a reliable constituent for them. Has provided a lot of financial backing for the Democrats. Not a lot of people, but a lot of financial backing, and that is the Jewish lobby. They're turning on them at this point. And of course, today it's the Jews. Tomorrow it will be the women. It'll be blacks. It'll be LGBT. They're going to turn on everyone and throw everyone that has been part of their coalition under the bus, I believe, one by one. They're going to throw them under the Muslim bus. And I want to take a look at how this is going to develop, because I think this is what we're seeing developing right now. We've had the new leadership of the DNC. They've talked about how they want to put Congressman Keith Ellison, the first openly Muslim, bragging about being a Muslim congressman. They want to have him be the next chair of the Democrat National Committee. And the Hill talked about this yesterday. They said, now we've got a Hispanic member that has come into the mix. Secretary of Labor Tom Perez is saying that he would like to be the head of the DNC. And they say that's a good idea because Ellison's history is littered with examples, they say, of conduct and statements that give Democrats who want to rebuild their party serious concern. This is coming from the Hill. They say he's said things that make them worry that he doesn't support Israel and may, in fact, harbor anti-Semitic sentiments. In other words, like we're seeing from Kerry and from Obama. And we saw this from Hillary Clinton. Remember, it was they called him a Gold Star father, but he was really a Muslim who supported Sharia law. Wrote a lot about Sharia law, and of course, he was the one who spoke prior to Hillary Clinton accepting the nomination at the Democrat National Committee. This is something they've been doing for quite some time. But take a look at now how they are doubling down on this. This is John Kerry saying that Israel can either be Jewish or democratic, but cannot be both. Would he ever say something like that to the Saudis? Would he ever say, you can be our ally, or you can persecute women, LGBTs, Christians, okay? Or you have to make a decision. Are you going to throw these people, literally throw them off the roofs, cut their heads off? Are you going to execute them, as we'll talk about later in the broadcast, how a woman under Sharia law had her head cut off because she went shopping without a man alongside her. But they would never say to the Saudis or the radical Muslims that are our allies that you can't do this and be our allies. But they're saying that to Israel right now. And so what they're saying is, he said to them, if the choice is one state, Israel can either be democratic or they can be Jewish, but it cannot be both. And it won't ever really be at peace. Now, you can look at that any way that you want to, but that is a threat. And quite frankly, it is an interesting and very significant reversal of American foreign policy that has been in place for 40 some odd years. But look at the way it's being touted by the media. Look at these headlines. This is from CNN. They say Secretary of State John Kerry, two-party state solution is in serious jeopardy. And they said that this was a stern rebuke Wednesday over Israeli settlements. And he said, we have to preserve the two-state solution. Well, we really haven't had a two-state solution. Wall Street Journal, they say John Kerry defends U.S. approach to Israel after UN vote on settlements and says this is a two-state solution in jeopardy. RT says two-state solution is the only way for lasting peace. And then we have the quote from NBC that says, the two-state party is now in jeopardy. As if this was something new. Understand, Security Council resolutions going back to 1976 have supported the two-state resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian problem. But the United States has always taken the position that they would not support this, that they wanted this to be negotiated between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And so they have vetoed anything that was going to be forced upon the two parties by the United Nations. That has been the policy of the American government for 40 years throughout both Democrats and Republicans. And so this is a last-minute virtue signaling to Muslims that Barack Obama is on their side, and it's an interesting signal to the Jews as well. And I wonder if the big donors in the Jewish community are going to get this message, or if they're going to be very slow on the uptake, as many people have in the past when they've been dumped by the Democrats. This is a new position. And the key thing here that you have to understand is that this new position of John Kerry and Obama, and they're trying to make it look as though this is a position from the Israelis. The new position is that the United Nations should dictate this solution to them. The Hill reports, defending the UN vote, Kerry ratchets up his criticism of Israel. In a rebuttal from Israel, Netanyahu criticized Kerry for spending more time criticizing Israeli settlement activities than condemning Palestinian acts of terror. Well, that would be because radical Islam really doesn't exist, according to John Kerry and Barack Obama. They can't bring themselves to say those words. Netanyahu also went on to say, Israelis do not need to be lectured about the importance of peace by foreign leaders. And with just 3 weeks left as the nation's top diplomat, Kerry used his speech Wednesday to make a last-ditch bid at charting a path forward for peace. No, he's not charting a path forward for peace. He's charting a path forward for a new pivot to Muslims, even if it includes throwing the Jewish people that have been contributing heavily to the Democrat Party, even if it means throwing them under the bus. They don't care. This is the direction that they're going. And then they said this. This is what Kerry said. He said, the United States did, in fact, vote in accordance with our values, just as previous U.S. administrations have done at the Security Council before us. Now, remember, I just told you that since June 1976, the United Nations has, at the United Nations, the U.S. has never taken this approach. They've taken exactly the opposite approach. So this is a reversal of a 40-year policy that would encourage the United Nations to dictate to Israel. And that's the key point here, I think, regardless of which side you're on in this Palestinian versus Israeli conflict. I think the key thing that's developing here is a fight at the UN. And this is what the Washington Post is saying as well. They say inside the coming war between the United States and the United Nations. And the Washington Post says, even before Donald Trump's inauguration as president, Congress is planning to escalate the clash over the UN Security Council's anti-Israel resolution into a full-on conflict between the United States and the United Nations. You notice how the Washington Post portrays the GOP as the ones who are changing the status quo? They say the GOP is initiating a conflict. This conflict is being initiated by a reversal in foreign policy both Republican and Democrats have had for 42 years. But now the Washington Post, always in the Obama camp, is now saying that this is Congress that is going to escalate this clash. Well, what is going to happen? You see people who are reliably in the amen corner of the Israeli lobby, people like Lindsey Graham, who always supports Israel no matter what happens, saying that they're going to cut funding to the United Nations. He pledged to lead an effort to withhold the U.S. funding that makes up 22% of the UN's annual operating budget. And Graham said the UN has made it impossible for us to continue with business as usual. Well, I hope that they do cut the budget. And I hope that they deport the UN as well. And we're going to look at what this might take, how this might take form in terms of protesting this development in the United Nations. They say there's several options, as Washington Post under consideration. 2 senior aides working on the issue reported. Some say they're considering micro options like passing a resolution that would bar any funding that might go to implementing the anti-settlement resolution and so forth and so on. They say withholding U.S. contributions to the UN would be easy for some discretionary funds, but there are treaties that mandate that Congress give them money by U.S. law. They say the treaties make this de facto U.S. law. Well, I would ask, where in the Constitution did they get authorization to fund an organization like the UN? I think that would be one way that they could fight this. But then they go on to talk about Rick Santorum, another person I have not been a fan of, who served the Senate. They say last time he served in the Senate, the U.S. refused to pay its dues in full. He reported to the Washington Post that the coming crisis in the U.S.-UN relations is a perfect chance for those who want to dismantle the organization altogether. Yes, that is the key. He said this has opened up the opportunity for those of us who are very anti-UN, who think that it's past its prime, it's not serving any really good purpose, it's not helping legitimate governments around the world, and it's outlived its usefulness. And I would also say that it is a key tool of globalism and trying to replace individual national sovereignty. He said to the extent that we can deconstruct it, the better. And so I agree. That's an opportunity for us to take another look at the UN. They go on to say in that article, we won't go into that much detail, but they say it looked like there was going to be a discussion about what was going to happen with NATO and whether or not European nations are going to pull their fair share. But now it looks like the initial fight between the first globalist organization is going to be with the UN. Good. That's where it belongs. Now, as we look at defense issues, we see that Obama is now talking about a punishment plan for Russia with the alleged hacking of our elections. See, he has no problem blaming Russia, even though he has no proof. We're going to see, even though he's blaming Russia, he has a hard time blaming Japan for Pearl Harbor. But let's take a look at this issue first. This is Free Thought Project. They say, according to the albeit dubious Washington Post, they put that very well, I think, the Obama administration will soon announce retaliatory measures against Russia. They say they're expected to include covert action that will probably involve cyber operations, and the public will learn precisely what is planned, quote, as early as next week. That's what we hear from the Washington Post. And they say the New York Post, the New York Times, the Washington Post publish articles citing unnamed officials from the CIA, and they go back and say, think about how ridiculous this is that they have flagged Putin himself, said that he hacked the election. They didn't provide even the most basic explanation for how this was possible, who had done it, or why the hack was undertaken. But now, the problematic announcement of a future announcement on how Obama will seek reprisals for the theoretical hack, it appears the corporate media and the U.S. government will be complicit together on this. And again, they point out that we've had a lot of intelligence veterans, people like Ray McGovern, William Binney, who have said that they don't believe that this was done by the Russians. They say the harder evidence of a technical nature points to an inside leak and not hacking by Russians or anyone else. But the unnamed official who spoke with the Washington Post on condition of anonymity said the White House is working on adapting the authority to punish the Russians.
3 years ago, the Congress in the National Defense Authorization Act repealed the law that had been on the books for decades, barring the CIA and other agencies from engaging in domestic propaganda and disinformation. Over the weekend, they passed the Countering Disinformation and Propaganda Act that funds $160+ million to this new organization that will, quote, discover and counter with its own disinformation alternative media that they dub fake news. At the very same time, we see mainstream media claiming that Trump, myself, Tucker Carlson, you name it, are Russian agents, and that the American people really wanted Hillary Clinton, but the Russians somehow hacked in, and that's why Trump won. Yes, we've gotten Trump elected, but they're openly trying to overthrow that. Now more than ever, Infowars needs your prayers and your support, and I need you to take the articles and the videos that are on the site and realize you're the reason we're having such an effect. You're the power of Infowars. Get those articles, get those videos, get those special reports out to everyone you know. As we approach Christmas, I'm not even supposed to say that word now, our country's under such incredible thought police tyranny. It's important to be thankful, and I am extremely thankful to all of you that have prayed for us, that have spread the word about the broadcast, that have supported us, that have defended us, and that have financially supported us. We go out and search for the very best products, and we also develop amazing products and then bring them to you at very competitive prices. So when we have a sale, it really is a sale. That's why this week through the 17th, we can guarantee you'll get delivery before Christmas. Again, if you order by this Friday, the 17th, and you will get store-wide free shipping at InfoWarsStore.com. And on top of that, some of the biggest discounts of the year. 30% off Living Defense Parasite Cleanse. 50% off colloidal silver bullet, and free shipping. That is just an incredible deal. Brain Force Plus, now with 20% more in each bottle and 30% off. $19.95, can't beat that deal. Winter Sun, Vitamin D3, 25% off. Survival Shield, X2, Nascent Iodine, again, an amazing 30% off. Bio True Selenium, 30% off, and that's just some of the specials. Check them out today at InfoWarsStore.com or InfoWarsLife.com, or call toll free. The great crew will answer your questions, tell you about some of the other specials, and take your order if you'd like. 888-253-3139. And finally, from myself, Alex Jones, and the rest of the Infowars crew and my family, I want to wish all of you a blessed and Merry Christmas.